Have you ever felt like you're constantly tiptoeing through life, trying so hard to be kind, agreeable, and endlessly available, just to keep everything from falling apart? Maybe you don't even remember exactly when it started. All you know is that somewhere along the way, you were taught, directly or subtly, that being a good person meant keeping quiet, pleasing everyone, and swallowing your truth for the sake of so-called harmony. But what if that idea, that moral script you've been following your entire life, isn't wisdom at all? What if it's just conditioning, a carefully crafted cage disguised as virtue? The Stoics had a radically different vision. They believed that virtue is strength, not submission. That true goodness doesn't mean letting yourself be stepped on, used up, or erased. In this video, we're going to dive deep into this hidden trap of people-pleasing. We'll uncover the steep price you pay for being harmless and explore the quiet, powerful rebellion that starts the moment you stop asking for permission to exist. If you've ever felt that the more you give, the less you're actually seen, stay with me. It's time to completely rethink what it really means to be good. Part 1. The Stoic cost of being good. Have you ever paused to really question what the world truly respects? Look around you, not at what people say they admire, but at what they actually reward. Who really holds the power, the influence, the unwavering voice? Is it the most honest, generous, and endlessly compassionate souls? Or is it the ones who are composed, crystal clear in their boundaries, and immune to manipulation? The truth stings, but it's essential to see clearly. Goodness alone does not command respect. In fact, blind kindness, when it's detached from inner strength, often becomes the very reason you're quietly dismissed. You can spend years being loyal, endlessly helpful, and always available. But the moment your presence stops serving the interests of others, you're not just overlooked. You're erased. No loud apology, no public outcry, just quietly replaced and forgotten. The Stoics saw this reality long before it became a modern cliché. Marcus Aurelius, both emperor and philosopher, embodied this truth. He led with a compassionate heart, but unequally disciplined hand. He never confused virtue with submission, because he knew that virtue, without discernment, turns into a weight others will happily exploit. Seneca warned us to never lose yourself completely in the service of others. That's not humility. That's self-betrayal. When you constantly try to be agreeable, to avoid friction, to always say yes, you unknowingly send a silent message to the world. You can ignore me. I pose no consequence. But where there is no weight, there is no respect. You're not seen as a full human being. You become a convenience, a resource, disposable. Why is it that those who set clear boundaries are more respected than those who never say no? Why do people who speak plainly and firmly command more space than those who chase constant approval? Because they refuse to trade their dignity for shallow acceptance. They don't beg to be noticed. They become visible through clarity, principle, and presence. The Stoic path isn't about being feared. It's about becoming immovable in your values. That's where true respect starts, not in loud, aggressive outbursts, but in the quiet, unyielding certainty that you cannot be manipulated by flattery, nor destroyed by rejection. Machiavelli once said that if a leader must choose between being loved or feared, he should choose fear. But the Stoics, they would offer something entirely different. Choose respect, born from unwavering inner firmness. Choose to be the kind of person who can act when needed, someone who carries a quiet, unspoken consequence, not out of threat or aggression, but out of pure integrity. That kind of presence doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to prove itself loudly. It simply exists so firmly that it refuses to be ignored. So ask yourself, what is it inside you that keeps reaching so desperately for external approval? What hidden longing makes you soften your voice, suppress your truth, betray your own time and peace, just to be accepted more often than we realize? What we call kindness isn't strength at all. It's a subtle, quiet attempt to avoid discomfort, a silent escape from conflict, a desperate strategy to stay liked at all costs. But the Stoics would look you straight in the eye and say, a peace earned by erasing yourself is no peace at all. And that is exactly what we're going to uncover next, where this compulsive need to be liked really comes from, and how reclaiming your self-respect might start with standing still, saying less, and letting silence speak louder than any apology ever could. Part 2. The Stoic origin of pleasing a Thursno. One is born desperate for approval. That impulse, the constant need to please, to always be agreeable, to be labeled good, is not your true nature. It's a script you were taught to read. From your earliest days, the world started shaping you, not with true wisdom, but with endless corrections and small punishments. Don't do that. It's not nice. Be polite. Don't say it. That way, you'll upset them. Slowly, you internalized a silent, unspoken lesson to be loved. You must never disturb others. So you started hiding your sharp edges. You tucked away your true voice. You swapped honesty for artificial harmony. And each time you did, a part of your will, your proheresis, as the Stoics called it, slipped from your hands and into the hands of others. What began as a survival strategy gradually hardened into a permanent habit of self-erasure. Today, you might dress it up with noble words, empathy, humility, kindness, but look closer when you say yes while your soul is screaming no. When you bottle up your frustration until it becomes a poison in your silence. What virtue is that? Really, the Stoics would call it weak assent, the quiet collapse of your inner clarity. It is not kindness if it costs you your truth. It is not virtue if it demands blind obedience to fear. Take the story of Elias, a man known everywhere for his gentleness. At work, he always stepped in to help, no matter what. In his family, he never raised his voice. His friends admired his patience, his eternal calm. But inside, Elias was exhausted. He agreed to things he didn't believe in. He swallowed countless moments of disrespect just to keep the peace. One evening, after being overlooked for a promotion yet again, he didn't even feel angry anymore. He felt nothing. That was the moment he realized he hadn't just silenced his pain. He had silenced himself. This is exactly what happens when you confuse acceptance with self-worth. You start to believe that endless agreeability is your shelter. But A safety built on silence is nothing but a gilded cage. Seneca warned, "He who always agrees with the crowd, even in good times, is already preparing his downfall." The fear of being disliked is not Stoic humility. It is slavery to perception. It places the judgment of others above your own reason, your logos, and slowly tears apart your integrity piece by piece. Ask yourself honestly, why does saying no make you feel so guilty? Why does expressing disapproval feel like a betrayal? Why do you equate self-respect with selfishness? The Stoics would tell you, it's because you've lost your center. You've confused virtue with performance. And this performance, it is endlessly exhausting. Because today they like you, tomorrow they don't. And all the while, your true self withers quietly in the shadows. This carefully polished mask of goodness, agreeable, accommodating, eternally silent, was never truly yours to wear. It was stitched together from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of exclusion, fear of not being enough. But fear is not a Stoic teacher. Fear distorts your perception, traps you in false choices, and robs you of ataraxia, that deep inner peace born only from living in alignment with your own reasoned choices. True virtue doesn't bend for approval. It stands firm. Marcus Aurelius never begged to be loved. He sought only to be just. Epictetus never pleaded for others to understand him. He devoted his life to understanding himself. And that is your task too, to reclaim your mind, your values, your voice. Yes, the world will misunderstand your boundaries. Let them. The cost of pleasing everyone is nothing less than the permanent sacrifice of your true self. But there is a better way, and to discover it, we must study not only the Stoics, but also thinkers like Machiavelli, who understood that appearance is a powerful currency, but one that must be governed, never worshipped. In the next part, we'll explore what the prince can teach us about escaping the trap of being seen as good, and instead being respected as someone who acts with clarity, presence, and unapologetic strength. Part 3. The Stoic strength behind the illusion of goodness. If you're still walking through life, believing that your moral integrity will automatically be recognized and rewarded, pause. The Stoics never promised that the world would celebrate your virtue. Instead, they taught that the wise man must carry both virtue and vigilance, because the world often admires appearance over true essence. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who ruled with both compassion and iron discipline, wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." But notice, he never said that being good would shield you from harm or earn you universal respect. In fact, he knew too well that those who appear weak, even if they are deeply just, are often treated as weak. You may act with fairness, you may live with unwavering honesty, but if your presence carries no weight, if you're easy to ignore, you will be ignored. Epictetus sharpened this truth even further. He taught that it isn't enough to simply possess inner virtue. You must also know how to carry yourself. In a world that doesn't see hearts, only shadows, you are an actor in a play, he said. Your job is to play your role with excellence. But remember, not everyone in the audience watches with admiration. What people perceive, they often believe. And if what they perceive is softness without structure, kindness without backbone, you become an easy target, used and discarded without thought. Seneca, writing from within the brutal, backstabbing court of Nero, put it even more bluntly: he who always acts like a good man among those who are not prepares his own ruin. The Stoic does not abandon virtue, but he does not wear it like a costume. He wields it like a sword, sharp, balanced, and silent until absolutely necessary. In the real world, kindness alone is not a strategy. That's why Marcus Aurelius warned, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who did the injury, not because you retreat, but because you rise, because your true strength lies not in petty retaliation, but in commanding presence and unwavering boundaries." A true Stoic must be as perceptive as a philosopher and as composed as a warrior. The Stoics never promoted naivety. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire riddled with betrayal, war, and constant political traps. Epictetus was once a slave who endured unimaginable cruelty, yet stood unbreakably poised. Untouched at his core, Seneca navigated one of the most treacherous political courts in human history, and he survived, not by mistaking morality for weakness, but by merging virtue with razor-sharp discernment. Not one of these great Stoics confused being good with being naive. They understood that in a world filled with schemers and manipulators, you must be prepared, not paranoid, but precise. Seneca once said, "You must live among the wicked, but live like yourself." This is the middle path. It doesn't ask you to become cold and heartless. It demands that you become crystal clear. It asks that you stop expecting life to reward you simply for being good, and instead start living as someone who understands the nature of others, but refuses to betray himself in the process. This isn't cruelty. It's wisdom. To walk the Stoic path is not to avoid harm entirely. That is impossible. It is to become someone who cannot be manipulated by the fear of harm. Someone who can see through flattery, silence manipulation with presence, and respond to injustice not with weakness, but with calm, measured power. So no, you don't have to become ruthless, but you do have to stop being blind. And maybe now you're asking, how do I walk that line? How do I avoid becoming bitter or hardened while also refusing to be taken advantage of? That's the next powerful truth we'll face together, because there is a way, a narrow path between the extremes of blind submission and uncontrolled aggression, and it starts the moment you stop apologizing for having a spine. Part 4. The Stoic line between virtue and voluntary slavery. There is a fatal confusion that silently destroys lives: the belief that, to be good, you must be agreeable to everything. That true virtue is measured by how many injustices you can silently endure, how many betrayals you can forgive without reflection, how easily you can erase yourself to keep everyone else comfortable. But let's be crystal clear. That is not kindness. It is naivety. It is weakness disguised in the language of virtue. If you don't learn to recognize this difference, you will spend your entire life as the world's emotional servant, endlessly useful, endlessly agreeable, and ultimately disposable. True Stoic kindness does not demand your disappearance. It demands clarity. It requires prohairesis, your rational faculty, the inner command center that governs your choices. To be good does not mean you must become a smiling shadow, nodding at every demand, endlessly self-sacrificing for people who would never cross the street for you in return. That is not virtue. That is self-betrayal, a dangerous abandonment of your own reason and dignity. Seneca once warned, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And what is constant self-erasure if not a life lived avoiding all friction, never drawing lines, never allowing your values to be tested or strengthened? Take Maria, for example, a beloved teacher known for her warmth. She stayed late to help students, answered emails at midnight, covered for absent colleagues. She was the good one. But over time, her silence became expectation. The day she finally refused a last-minute request, she wasn't met with gratitude, but with disappointment, not because she had changed, but because she had trained others to believe her goodness had no limits. Her integrity was mistaken for endless availability. Her virtue was misread as servitude. And that is the tragedy of naive goodness. It lives expecting the world to mirror its heart, assuming fairness will be returned, kindness will be matched, sacrifice will be seen and honored. But what happens instead? Disillusionment, quiet bitterness, resentment you never voice. Because naive goodness blindly projects nobility onto others who have not earned it. It creates an endless, silent war inside you. A war between all that you give and all that is never reciprocated. The Stoics teach us a sharper, clearer way. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that people would lie, cheat, disappoint. But he also reminded himself that he must remain true to his own nature. Yet, nowhere did he say that he must endure abuse. Nowhere did Epictetus suggest that virtue demands silence in the face of disrespect. On the contrary, Epictetus taught, stop attaching value to what lies outside your control. And what lies outside your control? People's approval, their praise, their fleeting opinions of your goodness. All of it beyond your command. True Stoic kindness is firm. It sets clear boundaries. It says no. It walks away when necessary. It understands that not everyone deserves your best. And giving your best to those who only deplete you is not generosity. It is mismanagement of your soul. Yes, you can be just, compassionate, deeply rooted in principle, and still be respected, still be someone others. Think twice before crossing, because when strength is paired with compassion, it transforms into presence. It becomes quiet influence. Remember, the Stoics never encouraged cruelty, but they absolutely despised self-delusion. And nothing is more delusional than believing that true virtue means you must accept mistreatment in silence. So, ask yourself this, and ask it honestly. Is your kindness protecting your dignity or exposing your vulnerability? Is it rooted in strength or in the fear of being rejected the moment you dare to draw a line? Because if your version of goodness means accepting crumbs, hiding your anger, justifying others' disrespect, and silencing your own needs, then you are not being good. You are being dominated. And domination has no place in a Stoic life. But there is another way, a powerful, balanced place where you don't have to abandon your values. nor bend your spine for anyone. A place where courage meets compassion, where you speak clearly, not loudly, where you can love deeply, but never beg, help others, but never be used, forgive, but never forget. In the next part, we'll walk this middle path together. We'll talk about how to stop being nice without becoming hardened or cold. How to reclaim your space in this world, calmly, deliberately, and without betraying your soul, because your life doesn't need more politeness. It needs more power, anchored deeply in virtue. And this is exactly where it begins. Part 5. The Stoic Path to Inner Strength. Many who finally awaken to the truth of their endless compliance fall into a subtle, dangerous trap. After years of saying yes when they meant no, years of allowing their peace to be eroded for others, they decide, never again. But what follows isn't always true strength. Instead, they slip into the opposite mask. They become rigid, cold, withdrawn. They believe that to escape being too nice, they must become unfeeling, unreachable. This is exactly what the Stoics would call a reaction born from imbalance, not from wisdom. It is not true transformation. It is overcorrection, and like all extremes, it is just another form of captivity. Because when you abandon your true nature in the name of survival, you are not stepping into power. You are simply shielding yourself with avoidance. That is not freedom. That is fear, wearing a new disguise. True liberation does not come from becoming the opposite of who you were. It comes from returning to your center. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to his reactions." Freedom is acting from choice, not from wounded reflex. It is when you stop performing virtue for the crowd and start living with alignment, not apology. So how do you stop being nice without betraying your true essence? First, reclaim your voice. You may have been taught that speaking up, setting limits, or disagreeing makes you selfish. But selfishness isn't about asserting yourself. Selfishness is when you demand that someone else stay small just to keep you comfortable. The Stoic understands that speaking truth, without cruelty, is not arrogance. It is dignity. When you say, "I do not accept this," you are not causing harm. You are honoring your reasoned judgment, your proheresis, the very heart of Stoic strength. Second, learn the art of refusal. No is not a war. It is a declaration of value. It doesn't need to be shouted. It doesn't need to come with a long list of excuses. A quiet, unwavering no, spoken from clarity, holds more power than 1,000 noisy justifications. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. That principle applies just as deeply to your boundaries as it does to your behavior. Those who never learn to say no will always be ruled by those who never bother to ask for permission. Third, notice who resists your transformation. When you start to shift, when you stop making yourself small, there will be those who push back. They'll call you difficult, changed, selfish. But as Epictetus would remind us, it's not what they say, it's how you respond that matters. These aren't signs that you're failing. They're proof that you're breaking the quiet, invisible contract that allowed others to feed on your silence. To those who depended on your compliance, your growth feels like betrayal. But don't mistake their discomfort for your mistake. Look at Lena. For example, she was the dependable one. Always said yes. Always the helper. Always the listener. The one who never asked for anything in return. But when Lena began carving out space for herself, declining last-minute events, expressing disagreement, prioritizing rest, one of her closest friends said, "You've changed." And she had. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't cold. She was finally aligned. For the first time. She respected herself more than the outdated version of her that others preferred. Fourth, stop seeking universal understanding. Not everyone will understand your evolution. They're not meant to. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one." Your task isn't to maintain appearances. It is to protect your inner alignment. You owe no loyalty to the outdated version of you that existed just to keep others comfortable. Your true loyalty is to the self that stands tall, even when misunderstood. Fifth, replace the desire to be accepted with a commitment to authenticity. When you act from truth instead of from people-pleasing, you might unsettle some, but you will inspire others. Most importantly, you will respect yourself. And self-respect is the only kind of respect no one can take away from you. This journey does not require you to become harsh. It requires you to become whole. Seneca never asked us to be feared. He asked us to be firm. Marcus Aurelius never demanded that we please everyone. He asked us to live in accordance with our highest reasoning. Now comes the turning point. The moment where you must choose. Will you continue diluting yourself in the name of being nice? Or will you finally step into a presence so grounded that it neither demands attention nor begs for approval? Because what's truly at stake here isn't just how others see you. It's whether you will live your one, brief, irreplaceable life ruled by the noisy expectations of the world, or guided by your own inner clarity. Part 6. The Stoic decision to reclaim yourself. Let's stop pretending. How much longer will you keep wearing the mask of the good one? Soft-spoken, ever available, endlessly agreeable. How much longer will you keep trading your precious time, your voice, your dignity, all to uphold an image that was never truly yours, but one the world conveniently expects you to maintain? This is not virtue. It is not nobility. It is captivity. A silent imprisonment decorated with polite praise. You're so easygoing. You're so reliable. You're so nice. Praise not for your power or presence, but for your predictability, for never being a threat, for being so easy to ignore. But here's the truth no one dares to say. No one is coming to free you. No one will suddenly reward your silence. No one will hand you back the years you gave away trying to please. Because as long as you continue to make yourself endlessly useful to others, at the expense of yourself, there will always be someone ready and eager to use you. That's not cruelty. That's simply how the world works. And, as the Stoics remind us, nature does not bend to your good intentions. It responds only to your actions. You can keep playing the role society wrote for you. Calm, selfless, endlessly tolerant. But prepare to be overlooked. Prepare to watch resentment quietly erode your days like a slow, invisible poison. Prepare to vanish inside the very kindness you believed would protect you. Or you can wake up. You can decide that your generosity will no longer be automatic. It will be a choice, not an obligation. That your kindness will flow from strength, not fear. That you will no longer beg for approval like a beggar at the gates of validation. Because true freedom, the kind the Stoics spoke of, isn't found in pleasing others. It is found in self-respect. And the moment you stop asking for permission to exist is the moment you finally become untouchable. If this message stirred something deep inside you, don't just walk away silently. Subscribe, like, and stay with us. Share your thoughts below. What part of this message spoke to you the most? There's so much more truth ahead. Here at Stoic Capsule, we're not just watching videos. We're building a community where inner strength is normal, authenticity is celebrated, and power is earned quietly but undeniably. Join us. This is just the beginning.